Of the Cromwell Board of Education to order at 7:05. Apologies for the short delay. Alessandra, could you do roll call, please?
Mrs. Cantwell? Here. Mr. Flanders?
John, are you on the line?
I'm here.
John is on there.
Sorry.
Mrs. Helliver? Here. Mrs. Langerson? Mr. Rotullo?
Here.
Mr. Menendez?
Here.
Mrs. Molly?
Lindsay will not be here this evening.
Mrs. Post? Here. Mrs. Russ? Here. Hunter Boyce? Kevin Riggio?
Here.
Audrey Dana?
Here.
Austin Visson?
Austin, are you on the line? And Hunter, are you on the line?
Mr. Fortenbach?
He will not be with us tonight.
Mr. Meadow or Mr. Ireland?
They have the Board of Finance meeting is going on now, so I doubt that they are on.
The roll call complete.
Okay, thank you. Approval of agenda additions, deletions, and chair's review of agenda highlights. So nothing to add or modify. We'll have another reopening plan update and let's see, updating school calendar. So pretty late agenda today. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented? Motion by Lori. Is there a second? Second by Jen. Comments, questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. All right, next item, celebrating our faculty staff. Dr. Macri.
Good evening, everyone. This evening we are celebrating Cromwell High School, and I believe Misty Fiore is on the phone. Misty Fiore, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Great. Would you like to start with faculty and staff, and then we can move to celebrating our students?
Oh, absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Well, it goes hand in hand, our faculty and our students that we are celebrating this evening.
Perfect.
Between February 13th and 17th, a winter storm greatly affected over 9.9 million Texans and Mexican citizens. Our National Honor Society and the Spanish National Honor Society wanted to help and ordered $500 worth of supplies to ease the burden of the effects of the storm. Some of the supplies included hygiene products, food service containers, water, batteries, and sanitizer, along with some other things. The supplies went straight to the Feed the People Dallas Mutual Aid to provide relief to those still without power and in need of food. And then the students who worked as part of those honor societies that organized the ordering and the event were the secretary, Amanda Quiros, and the president of the National Honor Society, Ryan Grover. And so today we are honoring the leader of the National Honor Society, who is our social studies teacher, Jackie Boe, and the leader of the Spanish National Honor Society, who is our world language teacher, Christina Williams, along with our students, Amanda Quiros and and Ryan Grover. The two of them we are honoring as well. And I believe they're all on the line.
Great, thank you. Ms. Boe, Mrs. Williams, would you like to make a comment?
Good evening. This is Ms. Boe. I just wanted to quickly say that I'm incredibly proud of our National Honor Society chapter and the Spanish National Honor Society for working together so effectively and so quickly. When this storm hit, both Ms. Williams and her students and my members were immediately quick to act and started researching people we could help and ways we could help. And it felt really great to be able to actually send something over immediately in a time of need and to see, the effects of our contribution. So it was great working with another club in the school, and I'm incredibly proud of our members.
Great, thank you.
I'm here. Thank you. Jackie, it's awesome working with you, and our students are just amazing, even during this time. So it's great that they can both academic abilities and then their time to remember.
Great. Thank you. Amanda or Ryan, would you like to say something?
Sure. It was really a great honor to be here. Thank you to everybody for honoring us. Obviously, during these times, every little thing helps, especially when you get a storm somewhere down in Texas. And then it's really just our pleasure to be able to work with such great students and faculty members, and we're just happy to help.
Great. Amanda?
Thank you for honoring us, and I just wanted to say a big thanks to our advisors, Ms. Williams and Ms. Bowie, for helping us out and aiding us during this time, especially helping us put this together, especially during COVID. It's really hard to come together as a community and help out someone who's all the way across the country. So I'm really proud of both of our clubs for being able to do this.
Great. Well, thank you. And there's no reason for you to thank us. We should thank you for always making us proud of our students. So thank you again. Any questions or comments from the board?
No, I would just like to say thank you to Ms. Bowie and Mrs. Williams, and to our National Honor Society, and to our National Spanish Honor Society. It's wonderful that you work together. Thank you, Amanda and Ryan, for being such amazing student leaders. We appreciate it, and I am positive that the victims of the Texas power crisis were very appreciative as well. Thank you for everything you guys do.
Yes, thank you again on behalf of the board. Okay, correspondence. Any correspondence to share?
No, I do not have any correspondence at this time.
Okay, thank you. Public comments. We did not receive any requests for public comment, correct?
We did not.
Okay, so no public comment. Okay, reports from student representatives. We'll start with the middle school. So Austin Audrey, the floor is yours.
Hi. We'll be starting off with the STEM Robotics Club. The STEM Robotics Club started this February. The club is for 8th grade students only due to safety reasons. Though the club is virtual, students are actually building robots. They're renting robotics kits and building their own robot that will partake in a multiplayer tournament.
Students will drive their robots on camera through Google Meet to participate in the tournament. Tournament highlights will be recorded and uploaded to the CMS Student News.
And the Student Council. Students and staff at CMS participated in their first spirit week of the school year in March. The theme of the year was 1 Wild Year, and students made donations to the animal shelter. In addition to a large box of cat food, litter, dog treats, and dog food, we were able to make a $50 donation. It was a fun week for all.
Students and staff at CMS are participating in a Step into Spring Step Challenge. All participants are required to track the amount of steps taken each day from April 5th to May 2nd using a fitness tracker. Students and staff alike are encouraged to get active in this friendly competition.
And with spring sports starting off with track, the track season has started at CMS, and students are excited to participate in the sport again. Routines have changed for the safety of the athletes, but the goal for the team remains the same: to improve on their endurance and cheer on their teammates to be the best they can be.
We look forward to future meets in representing Cromwell Middle School.
Great, thank you.
Next up, we have
I thought that was it. Sorry,
softball.
go ahead.
13 girls have signed up to play softball at CMS this year. Yesterday was the first day of practice, and it went really well. The season will consist of 8 games. The softball team is looking forward to a great season, and they are happy to be back on the field for the first time since 2019.
And for baseball, the baseball season at CMS is underway. Tryouts will be this week, and a team roster will be posted on Friday. Our first 8 games will be Friday, April 23rd at home. We will be following all CIAC guidelines with reference to COVID-19. Masks must be worn when not playing. Coaches must wear masks at all times. Each team will supply their own baseballs, just to name a few of the changes made so we can have a safe and successful season this year.
Great. Thank you. Any questions from the board for our CMS reps? Okay, no questions here. Thank you, Audrey and Austin. We will move to the high school. Devin, Hunter did not announce himself during the roll call, so the floor is yours.
For general information, the juniors took the Next Generation Science Standards test this morning. Softball team is hosting a where they sell coffee, tea, and gourmet snacks. The Gay Straight Alliance passed out space to all faculty and staff in the school. The freshmen are selling class T-shirts, and all the student clubs and activities recently made videos and presentations for the virtual 8th grade open house. For sports, several athletes received recognition for the winter sports season. For girls basketball, Nevaeh Clark received first team all-conference, Adela Feshu-Janin received second team all-conference, and Jessica Grodzicki received an honorable mention. For boys basketball, James Grodzicki received first team all-conference, and Michael Morgan received second team all-conference. The boys ice hockey team won the South Championship, CCC, the first championship since we have joined the team. Killian Ranger made first team all-conference and first team all-state for hockey. The spring sports season has officially started, and all athletes are excited for the upcoming seasons. The boys lacrosse, tennis, and baseball teams all have their first games on Saturday. The girls lacrosse, tennis, and softball teams will also have their first games this Saturday.
Thank you. Any questions for Devin? No? Okay, no questions. Thank you. Okay. Reports of liaisons from the Town Council and Board of Finance. So both Steve and John are at the Town Council meeting, so there'll be no updates. I guess I can just give the update from the Board of Finance meeting.
Sure.
So I'll just give a quick update from the meeting last week, which was the presentation of the BOE budget to the Board of Finance and the Board of Finance workshop. So Dr. Macri and Ann Burke presented the adopted budget at that meeting, and the Board of Finance at that time voted to reduce the Board of Ed budget from a 3.95% increase to a 2.97% increase over last year. That represents a reduction of the budget that this board adopted by slightly over $300,000. 300, yeah. So 312,167.
$312,167, which is 1.91%.
So it was a difficult meeting on several levels. The audio was not great, and people had trouble hearing each other. The Board of Finance did ask some questions, and we did not have the information readily available, so we said we would provide it in due course. So I asked the board to withhold their vote, but the board voted. So, yes, Dr. Macri, please.
We did not have some of the the answers to some of the questions. We had answers to many of the questions. The answers were not liked or agreed upon. However, they were the correct answers. I would have put the same thing that I said, myself and Ms. Burke said that evening in writing as to what we continue to repeat over and over again. So it wasn't that we didn't have the answers. The answers were challenged, and at one point we were told that they weren't buying it, which is was a very difficult thing to hear when that binder is so transparent, and the numbers that we received were from our experts. So there were a few things that they asked that obviously we could always go back and get, which would not have really informed the process at all. However, there were many questions that were asked. We provided answers. We responded in many different ways. And I don't know how many different ways we could have responded to the same question. The answer was just not being accepted.
Thank you for the clarification. So, listen, it presents a challenge to this board because now, assuming the board, the budget is adopted at a town referendum, we have to find or allocate that reduction of over $300,000 among our approved budget and the line items. So this all happened so quickly that it didn't make sense, or Dr. Macri and her team needs time to put together some proposals for those reductions, and there just wasn't enough time to do that for this meeting. So this will be discussed at great length at a future meeting. So there's no. We're not going to act on anything tonight. If people want to ask questions, we can, but there will be plenty of opportunity to do that at a future meeting. So Catherine, please.
Just a couple of questions. First, I tried to dial into the meeting, and just to show their technical difficulties, which is so ironic since our students and teachers have been dealing with this, they couldn't even let me in. They did the first time, there was a disconnection. Never let me in again. So it was frustrating. Also, what are our other, can we think about what our other options may be at this point? I know they voted and reduced our budget, which I find to be extremely challenging because they still had outstanding questions. So it's a little frustrating.
Yeah.
So I know it's an unusual situation. It's difficult to do all of this when half the board is virtual and half is in person. I'm just wondering if we can consider what our other alternatives are going forward, aside from cutting our budget $12,000.
Yes. So.
Yeah.
So first, thank you to Catherine and the other board members that participated or were in attendance at the meeting. I believe Lou was there. John Flanders was on Zoom as well. So certainly, apologies for not being able to get in. We weren't controlling the technology. So, but yes, that was a constant struggle during the evening because even the Board of Finance members that were not in person, that were on Zoom, we couldn't hear them. They couldn't hear us. People were talking over each other, and you just couldn't hear anybody. In terms of options, I'm not aware of any option we have to get the Board of Finance to reconsider their action. If there's a townwide referendum, which I understand it's going in that direction, it's not going to be like last year where there was no townwide referendum and the Board of Finance was the last stop. If the townwide referendum results in the BOE budget as reduced by the Board of Finance getting rejected, it would then go back to the Board of Finance for reconsideration. The issue is, and it's sort of a theoretical one that it's a laughing matter, in that if the budget gets rejected, there's nowhere on the ballot where it says the budget is too high or too low. Sure. I think the presumption is that it's too high, and that's why it needs to get reduced further. I'm not saying that would be the case here, but there's just no ability on the ballot to say why you're voting no. So that would be the next step in terms of if there's a townwide referendum, it goes to the townwide vote.
It just was a highly unusually run meeting. It was a little surprising from all aspects, from the technology right down to the way they decided to vote at that time.
And I will say just one other thought that was pervasive in the meeting was that there was some allowance, if you will, for the fact that we're getting the American Relief Fund grant, and that would be used to offset some of the items in our adopted budget, which Dr. Macri was clear about, that we don't yet have guidance on the use of those funds, and we may not or can't supplant our town. There's a two-year window on the spending of those funds, so it's not available going forward. It's just a short window that you can use it for. So I think that played into it as well, to be honest.
that was, those grants are to mitigate or to make up for the tremendous amount of learning loss. The 1.3 million that we did get some grants, but we are not a district in need, and that is based on the tax base that we have. We're not a district in need. That's why we didn't get a lot of grant funding from the get-go. It is expected that we were going to get some help and support from the town. Everyone would like, of course, everyone would like to see us use, not everyone, they would like to see us use some of that money to fill positions, to whatever with our budget. That's not what that money is for. 100% of our students have suffered extremely for different reasons, so many different reasons, so many different ways. That money is to mitigate, is to catch up the learning losses, to address their social emotional concerns. We have programs, summer programs, that we have never had to plan for in Cromwell Public Schools. I spoke about the failure rates at the high school. We have 48 students failing as freshmen, 36 coming in as freshmen. It's unprecedented for Cromwell. And do we just put everybody on Edgenuity and let them do a credit recovery course? No, they need the social emotional support. We have the social emotional support. We have the guidance support. We have the study skill habits support. I'm not saying that I know everything, but I've done this before. I worked in a very different district where this was the norm every year. And were we able to recover a lot of learning loss? Absolutely. Can we mimic it here for the money that we are going to be given, hopefully, through the American Rescue Plan? Absolutely. But if I am being expected to use that money to hire the social studies teachers that we spoke of, then right there, that's $149,302. So as we talk about things, and I do have a list that because obviously I haven't slept since that night, of how are we going to make this work. We had, as you all know, before I came forward to you with a 4.88. And then some things worked out with us as far as benefits and financial situations, attrition. But some things are still remain as they are. I spoke to you about cuts, $14,000 cuts, and then no cuts in athletics. Do you want, and I'm not saying you, because I know that you supported the 3.95, but do we want to cut the social studies teacher positions, or do we want to cut $35,000 from athletics at the high school and at the middle school? And what does that mean? Are we cutting lacrosse? Are we who gets to to make the final decision as to what we cut? And then if we don't cut any of those, are we ready to increase class sizes, which are already high at the high school? Are we ready to increase class sizes at the elementary level? And how high do we want to go? We're at a comfortable point right now, but when you look at our budget, 78% of it is salaries and benefits, and we can only use title funding, grant money, very, very, very specifically, or we'll lose it. We are closely monitored, and the ESSER fund, we already have someone assigned to us as to who's going to be watching us spend that money and how we're spending it. So I can't just say, we'll put in 2 social studies teachers into that grant. We may be able to in the Rescue Plan Act, except for in 2 years, those positions go away. So really, it's for programs, it's for intervention, it's for what our kids have missed and what they've gone through over the last, couple years. So over the last year. And as we move into it's not going away 100% when school starts in September. And we haven't gotten any guidance from the State Department of Education yet as far as what will remote learning look like. Will students have that option, and will the schools be obligated to provide that remote learning? We cannot continue the remote learning as we did this year with streaming in. It was a Band-Aid. We had no choice. Our teachers stepped up to the plate. I think we did an excellent job with buying what the teachers needed for resources as far as technology, but that is not a long-term solution. We know better now, so we have to do better. And then thinking about our students with special needs and the resources that they've missed and trying to provide those resources virtually. Same thing with our EL students, all of our students with special needs. We were there the whole time. We were feeding our students. We were educating our students. We kept our district open. A lot of districts did not. So to come back with what I felt was very unfair and with a lot of asking of questions and then a 45-minute deliberation and a motion thrown out to cut us over $600,000 when I don't believe that all the information was even read, is just complete disrespect for the Board of Education and, frankly, for the students of Cromwell Public Schools. If we want to invest in them and help them, then the adults have to make better decisions. And I did not feel like that happened at the meeting last week. I do, like I said, I have some ideas, but none of them are good. Athletics, $34,000 to the high school, $34,000 to the middle school. That's pretty much decimating the entire program at the middle school. Certified staff through attrition, that's one thing. We could be very, 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 very careful and hire very low. We want to hire quality, but we can train people. But we also have special education positions, French positions. These are shortage areas. So finding someone without experience is going to be very difficult. So these are some ideas that we have been throwing around, but I don't want to, we could cut every single solitary thing in grounds and maintenance, and look how far that's gotten us. It hasn't gotten us too far. So we have a lot of thinking ahead of us. I have not received the American Rescue Plan Act application. We have submitted the ESSER too. And that is 100% no supplanting. You have to fill 4 buckets, which we made sure, and we just submitted, we just hit submit today. It's not due until April 15th, but we wanted it done before vacation. So we will be assigned someone from the State Department of Education. No one's going to hand anyone, for us it's $1.2 million. That's not a ton of money. Some districts are getting $10 and $20 million. No one hands you. Right. We are right in the process of all the monies that we received last year. As far as we only got money for PPE because, like I said, we are DIRG G, D, and we do not qualify. My mind slipped a few years. We don't qualify for other grants. We don't have a grant writer on staff, so between myself and Dr. McLean and the assistance of other people who are learning how to write grants, we've been writing grants that we don't necessarily qualify for, but we might have a chance of getting because the bigger districts have more money and they're not applying for these grants. So we could possibly get them, which would help us, but whatever. We don't mind working 24/7. That's what we do. We'll do whatever we have to do. But this shouldn't be happening at this point. So, but it is. And we'll do our best, and we'll see what happens over the next month. But we need at least a month to get our bearings straight and to see if we could qualify for any other grants and to just apply like crazy. Because right now, we are looking at some of the cuts that we just talked about, and I don't know where else to go. And you all knew that I didn't know where to go before, with the 4.88, and we got lucky with benefits and such. So we're in dire straits. Could we have absorbed maybe $50,000, $60,000? Absolutely. $312,000 for a district our size is a lot of money.
And it's certainly not to minimize the effect that the pandemic has had on residents of our town. So, like I said, difficult situation, but I'm confident that we'll find something. But there will be some hard decisions that need to be made. So nothing concrete on the table today, but that will be forthcoming. Lori.
Let's just say we're not able to make any cut. Let's just say we cannot get to this number with that, because there's some things in there that we can't cut. I mean, without a huge impact. So let's say we couldn't. Why, if we had a referendum and the community knew where we stood and that where the Board of Education stood, are you saying that the community couldn't vote to approve the what we had voted on?
So the community doesn't vote on a number in terms of they don't vote in favor of the budget that we adopted versus the one that the Board of Finance reduced us to. They're just going to see the number as approved by the Board of Finance, and it's an up or down vote.
They could vote it down, and we could be in bigger trouble. That number can go lower. I mean,
Unless it goes higher, which again goes back to my earlier statement that there's no reason on the ballot for voting no.
1, 2, 3 of you were sitting in the room when you hired me. I always promised to be frank and honest with all of you. Highly unlikely that's going to happen. People, the community members, parents, families, everyone needs to be more invested in this process while it's happening, not at the end when we're presenting this, because we can't go backwards now. So to answer your question, and I'll answer it very honestly and respectfully, I do pretty well with finding every nook and cranny, and it's just the way I was raised, and I do it with our budget. I look at our budget every single solitary day as to where we are, which was surprising when someone asked why we didn't know where we were actually on that day. And of course we know where we are actually on that day. That's not part of the presentation. So, and I will never bring this budget into the red as long as I am your superintendent, for 2 reasons. One, that's one of my responsibilities. It's one of my big responsibilities to the community, to you as the board, and to myself as a superintendent of schools. You don't hang around too long as a superintendent of schools if you're known to bring your budget into a red. So unless you guys want to keep me forever and I'll never leave and never get another job anywhere else, I won't ever bring us into the red. So I will cut wherever I have to cut. Right now we are frozen, and our kids are going without things that they need. We've had to make some really hard decisions. Our principal's happy every single day. No, they are definitely not. Has it put a strain on certain situations? Absolutely, of course it does. I signed on for that, but I won't bring us into the red. The hard part is that we are in the red, so we will have to dip into some grant money, which legally we are able to do to get us out of this mess. Or I can go back and ask for an appropriation, which brings me into the red, and that is not something that I'm comfortable doing as the superintendent of your superintendent of schools. So it's a lose-lose for our kids, no matter what. So really, we need to have more people involved in the process and really understanding if they truly, if the community truly understands what the losses will be before you vote and then having to move forward with the Board of Finance, perhaps they would be more willing to speak up. And because what will happen now is we will make these cuts and we will have hundreds of people complaining to us. And at this point, it's too late. So I don't want to cut athletics. The last thing I want to do is see my kids our kids not have another season. They've already missed 1 or 2. But then do we choose social studies teachers in grade 6, which isn't just about social studies teachers. Without those 2 social studies teachers, we now don't have the time for focus intervention, because they work in teams, right? So I need people to be teaching specific subject areas while other kids are getting either enrichment or intervention that they need. So this is a bigger problem than you can imagine. But we have to make those difficult decisions, and none of them are going to be pretty, and we're going to have some very upset people at us, but we did everything that we possibly could. You did as the Board of Education, and I'm positive that I did with Ms. Burke and my administration to find every last penny, and we were very fiscally responsible. So to go back now and make these cuts is going to be extremely difficult.
Selena, please.
Just going forward for next year, I'm just failing to see where the public would have the opportunity to speak up, because if they had been watching our Board of Education meetings all along and maybe they were pleased with what they saw, but then suddenly it's cut by the Board of Finance, it's a very small window. So I'm just struggling to see how they can support us better. I just don't know where that would happen. Attending the Board of Finance meetings?
Well, yeah, there was public comment available before the deliberation on our budget, but I don't know how that was advertised in terms of being able to sign up, because of the pandemic, there are in-person restrictions at the meeting in terms of numbers. I assume people would have had the opportunity to comment over Zoom or submit.
At that one meeting?
Yes. They did everything right. I looked at all of the same thing
no
as
one's
we
saying
do.
they didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
no.
did everything correctly. The problem is we make a lot of assumptions, and I don't think this is a regular thing for Cromwell. It's here's how much you're getting, go figure it out. And we're at the point where, okay, we'll go figure it out, but we are close to 10 years behind in curriculum. We don't have we're getting a social emotional learning program. We just had a pandemic and we're still in it, it's not over, that everyone has relied on the school system for, and people are paying their taxes. There was a report that the taxes are coming in steadily, and we are not behind. And I encourage people to read what I've been reading, and because it's my job, but it's my responsibility to advocate for what our kids need. But it shouldn't be just my responsibility. It should be everyone who lives in this town to advocate for the students of Cromwell. And I'm not so sure that's happening, but there are opportunities to do that. And I'm not saying start a riot, because that's not going to help, but we need to communicate, and we need to make sure that people understand the process and procedures. It's very difficult to understand even when you're the superintendent, and it changes from district to district. But people need to become more aware of what could happen in situations as such. Because when we come, in the next meeting, when all these cuts are on the list and it gets out to the public, we'll be here until 2 o'clock in the morning listening, to complaints about what's getting cut. And what do we do at that point?
Lou and then Jen.
Yeah, I was on that call, and it was very upsetting, I'll be honest. But my question is, are we allowed to email all the families in our district to inform them of what our original, the history of where we are with the budget? I don't know, as far as going along the ways of informing the parents as to where we're at, that might be a way to get them basically on our side, to say when it does come time for a referendum, if it goes that route, at least they'll be informed as to where we're at, because they, as of this point, they probably don't know. I mean, I don't know what percentage, could be very, very low, of people that are on these calls, at the finance meetings, town council meetings, now especially with COVID and some of the restrictions. But it might be beneficial for us to send an email to district to inform the parents where we're at. Hey, this is where we were with the budget. We thought it was responsible. This is where we were taken to. And these are some of the, possible, we feel it's going to have adverse effects.
So I think, and that sort of goes to where I wanted to go in a little bit in terms of the process going forward. It sounds like we still need some information. Mm-hmm. And the question is, do you think you'll have that available for our next meeting in May? I don't think we're meeting in April. Because maybe that could be an insert in the agenda in terms of, the reason for those cuts and how we got to where we are. The one question I have based on Lou's comment, and John, maybe you can chime in here. Isn't there a restriction on what the Board of Ed can do in terms of promoting one way or the other the town-wide referendum on the budget. Like we can't use Board of Ed materials to advocate people to vote one way or the other. Am I correct or wrong on that?
You're correct.
Yeah, you're definitely correct on that. Absolutely the Board of Ed resources cannot be used to speak on the agenda on a referendum. There is a restriction, and I am striving manfully to drag it up and failing. I'll look it up, but there are very, very much restrictions on our ability to lobby, I guess, the public on this, and we can get that out to the board. Quickly. I just can't remember what the restriction is off the top of my head.
You just need to be mindful of that.
The one thing that I will warn everybody is there was a very, very strong current at that Board of Finance meeting to cut our budget further than it was cut. I mean, there was a significant fraction of that board that wanted to cut us more. And I'm very, very concerned that if we went back to them, that is exactly what they would do. I mean, the initial motion on the budget was substantially lower, and it was only through some amendments that got passed through that it stayed where it was. We would be noticeably less had the initial motion on our budget gone through, noticeably less than we are now. So I am hearing everything. I am really ambivalent about the wisdom of going back for a second bite of this apple.
Thanks, John. I don't think anyone's advocating that.
Okay?
Discussion at this point. So,
Can you hear me?
so Jen.
So I just wanted to, I guess, express to the community, if you are upset about this cut, run for the Board of Finance, because there are very few parents on the Board of Finance, and if we can get more parents on the Board of Finance to support our budget, that could be a good thing for us. So if you're mad, run for Board of Finance.
Thanks, Jen. So certainly to be continued. It will be on our next meeting agenda for discussion and possible action, I guess. And I don't even know when the town-wide referendum would be. I don't think it's been scheduled yet. So, have you heard?
I believe it's May 5th, but I could
May
be
5th?
wrong.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
And
Okay.
what John said was correct. Had it not been for another person making, it was like I was shaking because I was thinking to myself, if we were cut with the first motion or whatever it was, it would have been extremely detrimental to our students, extremely detrimental. So I do thank the person who did have some rationale behind his motion. But the first motion came out of the blue. That's the part that is concerning about all of this, is the amount of work that is put into the budget starts from the minute we leave, and I leave. It's part of my job every single day. You all take it very seriously, and then to have a motion thrown out just to basically destroy all the work that was done and to move our kids forward was just so upsetting. But I also agree with John that this ship has sailed, but we need to make sure that our families are better educated and how the process works and what they need to do in order to advocate for their children. Because I do get a lot of phone calls and emails that say, why is this happening? I pay my taxes. That's great. I'm glad I pay my taxes too, and I don't have any kids. However, that doesn't mean because you pay your taxes, your child has access to every single solitary thing you want them to, especially when you have to, this is the way it works. So I think educating people and really having them understand, and perhaps we have workshops with the public and just having people really understand how does it work. I'm an educator. Education is knowledge is power, and I honestly think that the knowledge is not out there, and we need to make that change.
Thank you, Lori.
Just one last thing. This is just me personally. I just find this so discouraging, and I don't know. I think everyone else does too. All the time that we spend working on this and poring over these numbers, like. Why are we even doing this if we're just gonna be told, oh no, this is the amount? Like this doesn't make sense. Like why do we spend hours and hours and hours going over the budget? And it's just so discouraging. And I don't know. I just am very discouraged and upset about this, and I think all of us are. So just wanted to say that.
Thank you. So. Like I said, to be continued. It will be on our future agendas, so more to come. Next item, superintendent's updates and responses to BOE comments, action items from prior meeting. Anything? No. Okay. Okay, next item, 2020-2021 budget update, reference A. Dr. Macri or
Yes,
Ms. Burke?
Ms. Burke. Ann, if you want to speak.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I've included in your packets just a brief memo and the budget status report for the month ending March 31st. We're doing okay. We're holding our own. Ed and I both have significant concerns about making it to the end of the year in the black, but I assure you that we are working very, very hard to make that happen. While COVID expenses have been really high, this isn't the first year we've had a lot of unexpected expenses, and we have managed to balance the budget. Okay. So we're working really hard, and we're trying to control expenses. We have many building problems at all the schools, some worse than others. So right now, the majority of expenses that we are approving are items that we can't not fix. So that is something that comes across my email asking for approval multiple times a day is in the facilities and operation areas. If anyone has any questions, I will do my best to answer them for you.
Any questions from the board?
I also would like to just, so it's very important for Ann and me to know that you understand that you obviously see this budget status report every time we meet. So it's very important for us to know that we're doing our job, because this was questioned at the Board of Finance meeting of why we don't have actuals. We do have actuals, and we show them to you every month. So,
sorry, if you're
someone's having fun.
Stars are so fascinating.
If you're on the line, could you just mute yourself?
Interesting.
Hey, Jeff, I don't know if
how they sparkle on the
it's me, but I feel like I'm being put to bed here.
Yeah, we all hear.
Somebody's got their mic open.
If you could just mute your line when if you're.
I have that effect on people.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm very proud of that parent, though, whoever it was.
That's okay.
They did a nice job. But just making sure that you understand, if you were listening that evening when one column was being in the budget book and we had a discussion about actuals, you wouldn't put actuals of where you are to date in a budget binder, because clearly that is not the place for it. You would have to go online and look at it like we bring it to you clearly because you're the Board of Education. But it's all there every month, and if people want to know where we are actually to date, they can look for it and see it. So Ms. Burke is doing a fabulous job, and I want to thank her because this hasn't been an easy last 2 years to try to predict what we'll be spending and what we won't be spending. So thank you, Ms. Burke.
Thank you. So any questions from the board? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Burke. Okay, on to new business action. Approval of minutes and motions from the March 23rd, 2021 meeting. I just have one change. Lindsay Murley mentioned to me that she was at the meeting on March 23rd, but just remotely. So if we could just have the minutes reflect that, please. Other than that, is there a motion to approve the minutes as amended? Motion by Jen, is there a
So
second?
moved.
Second by John. Comments, questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Abstentions? Are there any abstentions? Nope. Okay, so the motion carries unanimously. Item B, reopening plan update. Dr. Knapp, is there a quick
I'll
update
try to
on
make
that?
this very quickly. Things are going as expected. Ms. Hansen is on the phone. She can give you the update as far as quarantining active positive cases. Vaccination is going well for adults, and we are doing a decent job with covering classrooms, and we have not had to close school like some of the other districts have. We are in conversation, and hopefully things will go well, with CHC from Middletown in providing a vaccine clinic for our students who are 16 plus. If all goes well, it'll be April 28th and May 19th. Obviously, parental consent. It'll be held here. What I'm trying to do is make sure that if our students want to be vaccinated and their parents, and they're not 18, their parents would have to sign consent. If they're seniors, that they won't miss their senior activities. I'm trying to get them vaccinated before that could happen. At that point, if families don't want that, that's okay, but at least I did everything that I possibly could to make sure that I tried everything so that kids would not be quarantined for graduation, which is a reality. We will be quarantining for 10 days when you have a when you're close contact. Ms. Hansen, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. Do you want to give
Can
us
you hear me?
Yes. Do you want to give us the stats
Yeah.
on? Okay, great.
Yeah. Our active positive cases we're in good shape. ACS has 0 students, 0 staff. WISP has 2 students, 1 staff. CMS has 0. At middle school and high school are all at 0. So we have 1 staff and 4 students total for the district. As far as staff quarantines, we have 1 at ECS, 3 at WISP, and none at the middle school and high school. We do have some students quarantined. At ECS, we have 34. WISP, we have 49. Middle school, we have 2. And high school, we have 6. So a total of 91 in district. Some of these quarantines are from outside. The reason they're reflecting high at WISP and WISP primarily is we've had some outside sports quarantines that we cannot, if they are quarantined at an outside sport, we do have to quarantine them as well at school and from all activities. So that is impacting us a little bit. The positivity rate in the state is 5%. Our Cromwell case rate for last week was 21.1, which is up a little bit. We're monitoring that and hoping that we don't see it increasing more with the holiday break and with the Easter break. I did want to just add to the vaccine. I think it's important for parents to know if they do have students over the age of 16, that once they are 2 weeks out from their second dose, students that are 16 and 17 are only eligible for the Pfizer vaccine. And
if they are 2 weeks out from their second dose and they are feeling well, they will not be required to quarantine if they are identified as a close contact. So that would be, that will help us not quarantine such large numbers.
There's a question from Catherine Nurse Hansen.
Jillian, the parents just need to provide a copy of the quarantine card, correct? That shows their doses and when they receive them?
Yes. So I will preface this because we've had some staff having to, if they were in a close quarantine or close contact situation, we have to have the card. It has to have the date of their second vaccine, and it has to have their name, not a patient number on it. So yes, if parents have that, that's something that they can voluntarily hand into the nurse's office, and then we can have it on record so that when we do a quarantine, we can cross-reference that.
Thank you.
We will still notify the parents as if there is the statement that if you are not feeling well, then you would still need to quarantine. But as long as, so we will notify parents, but as long as everyone's feeling, the students feeling well, they will not be required to quarantine.
Thank you. Nurse Hansen, there's a question from Selena.
Just a clarification, I think you'd said that Pfizer is the one that is approved for 16 and up, and is there a time period between the first and the second dose? And so will that even help us for this year, or is it more for next year? Meaning if they get the first dose. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great question. So Pfizer, the time limit in between the doses for Pfizer is a minimum of 3 weeks. So yes, definitely if parents can get appointments in the next few weeks, they can get that second dose in and be 2 weeks out before the end of the year. So especially for those seniors that are attending, graduation ceremonies and things like that. And those dates that Dr. Macri just read to you, I've looked at that, and they will, if we're able to provide those vaccine clinics after school, they will still be 2 weeks out by the last week of school. So they would be fully vaccinated for their last week of school.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Nurse Hansen? Catherine, please.
Jillian, Ms. Hansen, can you let us know if there's a 6-month limit on the vaccine, or if that's all been lifted by the CDC?
We were on the DPH call this morning, and right now it is at 6 months. And I think my guess is that they need more time to see, how long the antibodies are at the right level to, I think there's a good possibility that it will be longer than that, but they haven't given us any update other than 6 months at this point.
Thank you. Okay, anything further for Nurse Hansen? Oh, actually, back to you, Dr. Macri.
Okay, we are done with the reopening unless anyone has any questions. We are in the process of planning everything, graduation, end of year events, and we're still waiting for guidance from the State Department of Education and DPH. So we may have to make some adjustments once we get that guidance, but we have moved forward with all of our plans, and hopefully we won't have to make too many tweaks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's see. Next item, action. Updated school calendar 2021-2022, reference C.
Okay,
Dr.
so
Macri?
you will notice I just handed you a pretty color copy.
And for those not in person, it was attached to the
Referencing.
emailed link to the
Yes.
references.
And it's in color in the email link. I didn't realize that, and I was trying to be frugal since we got cut $312,000, and these are 8 cents a page, so I really wanted to be frugal. But I figured I'd let you see the color tonight because it was really important. Just look at the differences here. So Dr. McLean is also on the phone. I know we've had in-depth conversations about learning loss. I know that we have had in-depth conversations about being far behind, or we're not where we need to be curricularly, and that in order to make this machine run, everyone has to be involved. So in order to write curriculum and do it the right way, we did a presentation. We explained thoroughly that teachers must be involved. And our teachers have very little time during the day that is not either they're not teaching, or it's their prep, or they're not on duty. Many districts have been doing this for a very long time. Cromwell has been doing this for years, I believe, as far as looking at the light purple. I draw your eyes to the light purple. And I am asking for the Board of Education to approve. We already do a 1 hour early dismissal on Thursdays if it wasn't a COVID year. I asked for the half days this year after a specific time. The high school has always had a 1 hour early release on Thursdays, and that allowed them for professional learning communities, data teams to really look at where our students are and where are we going. It also allows for teaming conversations, because obviously when you have let's say if you're a child with special needs, you are working with many different adults. So that provides time for you to work, for the adults to collaborate. What I'm asking for and proposing is that we don't have the 1 hour early release only for the high school. I'm asking for the 1 hour release on Wednesdays, and the Wednesdays that are marked in purple. So you notice that not all of them are, because there may be other things going on, so we can't release early for the entire district. And we would use that curricularly for PLCs, for professional development, for whatever we really need to get done, which we do not have time to get done. But most of it is for our teachers to collaborate with their coaches, with our coaches that we have, to make better informed decisions for our students. So I'm asking that the board consider allowing us to do this, and you will see them. There are 3 in September, 2 in October, 2 in November, 3 in December, 2 in January, 4 in February, 3 in March, 3 in April, 3 in May, and only 1 in June, to have an hour early dismissal for the entire district so that teachers can use this as professional learning time. And Dr. McLean is on the phone. Carrie, would you like to add anything? Did I miss anything?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Macri. I just want to take this opportunity to advocate strongly for this time for our teachers, because, as we all know, we've got, a lot of students that are in need right now, and this time for teachers to collaborate is at a premium. During our school day right now, because of our staffing issues and lack of subs and all of the things that happen during the school day, our time for teachers to be able to sit and collaborate and discuss is extremely limited. We've had this time built into the calendar for high school teachers for, since I taught there 8 or 9 years ago, and I just want to make a plea for all of the teachers in the district at this point really need this time to be able to discuss students, to make individualized learning plans, to learn, to get professional development on all of the new programming that's being implemented, and to, most importantly, be able to look at the curriculum and make adjustments based on where our students are in the moment. And in the coming year, that's going to become so much more important. And so I just want you to take that into consideration. And 1 hour a week is invaluable to our teachers.
So, Carrie, the way we looked at it, as far as loss of instructional time, because we would
right. So it's not even 1 hour of loss of time, because what we would do is we would take the 1/2 hour that's built into the schedules now, and we would, keep that as instructional time, because at this point, by the time we get coverage and everybody gets together in the same room, we're talking about maybe 15 minutes of solid collaboration time. So we would
move that back into instructional time and take this one solid hour out of the week for our teachers.
So if that makes any sense at the elementary and middle school level, we have PLC time approximately, and it varies at different schools. What we do is we find coverage for grade level teachers to meet. So they're really not getting their instruction. It's coverage. So we have an expense, and they're not getting the instruction from their teacher anyway. So the way we look at it is it's a win-win. It is, we understand, we completely understand it can be difficult for families with younger children for a 1 hour release. YMCA Kids Corner has had and continues to have open availability, but it is something that, and like Carrie said, we are making a plea to continue this next year, and that's the big change on this calendar. Besides that, there's one other change, and we could talk about it all at once, or you can ask questions now, however you want to do it. Do you want me to move forward with the other big change?
Sure.
Okay. The other change is when I got here, I realized that ECS and WIS, we only had parent-teacher conferences in person once a year, and then I found out that we do have parent-teacher conferences in March as well for parents who would like to come for ECS and WIS. It's a must. Parents need to touch base with their child's teacher twice a year at that early age, and they can whenever they want, but in person, it's highly important. We all know that when parents are highly involved, students succeed. So instead of making it, let's give 2 hours of PD time and figure this out so that we could allow parents to come in, that wasn't working. We want to make it part of the formal calendar. So you'll notice March 16 and 17 have been added. So there'll be early dismissals, and it'll look a little like this. For CMS and CHS, November 1st and 4th, they will have an early dismissal. Teachers will come back in the evening on both of those nights because they have more students to attend to. On November 16th, we haven't decided which way. We'll make a decision soon. There'll be let's just say there'll be an early dismissal, which is 12:10 for elementary level, and teachers for that day will then begin conferences rather soon, shortly after that dismissal, and they'll have conferences until their contractual day ends, which is about 3:35, and they won't have conferences that night, but the following day they will have another early dismissal, and they will have evening conferences. So it gives the parents the opportunity to have an afternoon conference if that works for them, or an evening conference, but there are 2 days on the calendar for both fall and spring, so that parents can have two touch points with teachers. And that's something that has been different from the past, and those are all starred. We use all fancy shapes in trying to help parents distinguish what everything means in brighter colors. Everything else is everything that we've been doing as a district. Nothing else has changed.
Lori.
I'm just looking at that first week in November. That's always a week when the students are hardly in school. So you have November 1st would be a half day. So that's Monday. Tuesday they're going to have no school. Then Wednesday they're going to get out early. Then Thursday would be a half day. Would it be is it necessary to have that early dismissal on that Wednesday, since they already have 2 half days that week and a day with no school? You see what I mean?
Yeah, I completely understand what you mean. The times are used very differently, but I understand what you mean. And is it absolutely necessary? Is it something that could make parents' lives easier if we don't have it? I don't have a problem with making that a full day if that's something that everybody agrees we'd like to do. The time is used differently, but it's not a huge deal. We could definitely make that change.
So we'll keep that on the side and we'll sort of consider everything at the end collectively. Selena.
I'm just curious if you considered having, instead of an early release, a delayed entry to school. I just wonder if that would be easier for parents with young kids to just go in late to work instead of arranging the afternoon to come home that early. Just a thought.
Yeah. So in my past experience, that is what we did. But we did it for secondary, not elementary, for that exact reason. A lot of parents actually needed that the Kids Corner care early in the morning. That begins at 7 a.m. We are a different community. We could consider it, but it does pose a challenge, a bigger challenge. It posed a bigger challenge in my past, which is why I kind of stay away from late arrivals to begin with, because parents really do utilize that early kinder care time. We could.
Wouldn't be available then, you're saying?
I don't see it being. We would have, and if we did it, it would really make more sense to do it at the secondary level. Just because students can stay alone, they can drive to school, they could wait for buses. It actually works the opposite with a lot of working families.
They're just used to getting their children home at a certain time, so I felt like maybe less of a change, but maybe it's more important they get into work. It was just something I wondered, if you could kind of survey the parents maybe and see what would be a better option. But either way, I understand.
I'm sure we'll end up with a 50-50 split. 70. I'm not 100% opposed. I just think it might make it a little bit more difficult. We would have to stay on the same schedule so that the buses could, run. Whenever I move them, they would still run as long as they were on schedule with each other, so that we can get both routes going. But I've tried that before in the past.
I'm being told I am wrong, so
Okay.
disregard everything I just said.
It has in
that
the
it's not easier for families to get to work.
It could be easier for some families, and it could be easier for others. And I've definitely lived both lives. It really was hard for families in the morning.
Just a couple questions for me. So this would be in lieu of the high school having early dismissal on Thursdays, correct? This is not on top of that.
No, this is in lieu of. So it's just to get the entire district on the same, instead of doing it on Thursdays for only the high school, this would now be for every teacher across the district. So we could have PLCs, and that time, once a week on Wednesdays. Nothing would change on Thursdays for the high school. And
so we wouldn't have early dismissal on
we would
Thursdays.
not have early dismissal on
Sorry.
Thursdays.
Okay.
Right.
And would this be...
Yeah, Jeff, just so that you know, the reason we switched the days was because on Tuesdays and Thursdays there's late buses, so we wanted the teachers to be available on Tuesdays and Thursdays to work with students after school. So Wednesdays made more sense for us to do the early release.
Thank you. And is this for next year only, or is this anticipated to be...
Chairman Matrullo, I just can't wait to get through June 9th. So, as a planner myself, I personally think that, and professionally and personally, teachers need this time. It's not built into their day. It is extremely beneficial, and I probably will be advocating for it on a year-to-year basis. That doesn't, it's very important time. I know Dipti and maybe Jen have some personal experience.
I do like the idea that the kids can stay with their own teacher every day, because when you get a substitute in, sometimes it's not the same kind of instruction, and it's not even the same kind of behavior that the kids have. So I think gives them a good continuity with their teacher throughout the day, every day, without a sub coming in if they don't have to.
Actually, I want to pick up on that, and Carrie mentioned it before. In terms of it's not a, because the kids are getting out 1 hour early, it's not equivalent to 1 hour of learning lost time. And
Right.
Could you explain that again, please?
Sure. So right now, we try to provide PLC time, professional learning time, during the day to teachers. And the reason why my understanding is Cromwell, and for obvious reasons, did not move forward with something of the sort for the entire district is it does cause a slight, it is difficult for parents. For some it won't be, for others it will be. So we've built in time into their school day. But in order to do that, it looks different at ECS than it does at WIS because it depends on who you have for coverage, how many groups of teachers can meet. So right now, we have built in a half hour of time where someone comes in and covers the class so that the teachers at that grade level can meet. Maybe it's 4 teachers, maybe it's all 8. This way, it could be all 8 of the first grade teachers at the same time. So then you put a sub in there. And it depends. It could be your building sub. It could be a paraprofessional who's covering. It could be a specialist teacher who's covering. It varies. It really depends on the schedule of the school and who's available. So they're not getting instruction from their teacher. So when we talk about loss of instruction, there is no replacement for instruction from your teacher. We've all learned that over the last year. So that's when we say it sounds like we're missing really an hour of an instruction, but we're really not missing an hour of instruction because we're taking it from somewhere else. We're making it up.
Related staff to also meet with those teachers, because I know it's not always possible when you have a group of teachers go out at one part of the day, there's a whole part of the staff that a student may need that's not available, so
Right.
that gives that more flexibility with special ed and related staff meeting with students, teachers.
And I would never say that our special education and our regular education staff are not doing, they're meeting and they're talking, but it's not deliberate time. This is deliberate time for them to meet and collaborate. And it's definitely needed. We are definitely missing it in Cromwell.
Catherine.
Yep. So how would it look with, because you've already said you're going to do block scheduling for the middle school and the high school next year. Are you just going to cut an hour out of the last class of the day? Are we keeping the block schedule model the same for next year? I already have strong dislike for the block scheduling based on
I know you do,
my
Miss.
kids and many others I know have experienced. So I'm not confident in this method if we're going to keep our block scheduling the way it is. And also, I was in agreement with the half-day Wednesdays so that teachers could catch up and everything else, but we've seen a lot of teachers that we just hit the end of the quarter where the grades had to be in, and some students still didn't know their grades as of this morning. And what are you doing if we're giving you half-day Wednesdays and you're not updating students with what their grades are, when grades really, really matter for a lot of students? It's very disheartening, even in the middle school where the kids are trying to manage and control what they're doing, and they're not finding out until weeks later what they're actually receiving. So those are my 2 concerns over it. And I understand that this is not to be used the same way necessarily as the half-day Wednesdays, but this just kind of feels like it's going in somewhat of a similar direction. So those are my 2 concerns.
The last 2 things I'll look into, for sure. And Carrie, you are, and Fran, Ms. DiFiore, as far as the block scheduling, we definitely know we have to use it for just cohorting purposes for next year. I did explain last meeting, I am a big proponent of block scheduling. Have we made a 100% decision to move forward after next year with the block scheduling? We haven't made a 100% decision at all. We're just trying to get it right for, for next year. And we've learned a lot. We would shorten the classes. You wouldn't just miss a class. We would shorten them. But before I make any mistakes and put my foot in my mouth, Ms. DiFiore, would you like to speak to that, or Ms. Cocciola, or Dr. McLean?
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, as we've always done it on Thursdays, we've just shortened the periods. And so that would be reflected. There would be, this time it would be Wednesday. So there would be a shortened Wednesday periods in which we always would add in also our connections, our once-in-a-week connections lesson that is provided to each student. We usually do it on the same day. So really you end up changing the schedule only one day a week based on those two additional things, getting out early an hour and then adding the connections class. If that helps, I don't know.
I believe so.
Hello, everyone. This is Anne. Yes, it would be very similar to align with the high school to have the half day and to have that same. We would see the classes on a shortened schedule, and we too are working on adding an advisory period, as we would call it, similar to Connections, and it would look very similar to what the high school would have. I also want to make a note on these half days. It's also just an amazing opportunity for teachers to work also vertically, high school and middle school to work together because they have that common time. Also middle school to work with Woodside, and just helps with transition. So it would be also beneficial for us to have that opportunity.
Carrie, did you want to say anything? Did you want to add, Dr. McLean?
No, I mean, I think they captured it, but there are just endless benefits to this time that we could use, and I think that in terms of child care options, just as a parent, I know that there are more aftercare options than there are before care options, and as far as an educator, I just think that this time is invaluable for teachers to be able to meet together. And this is time outside of planning. So, in terms of getting grades in and things like that, that's not what this time would be used for. This time would be used for really professional learning communities where teachers would be collaborating with one another about students or curriculum adjustments or things like that.
Lori.
Just real quick, on the notes for the half-day Wednesday discussion from the minutes, it had said that you would be happy to share the research with the board if we would like to see it for the benefits of block scheduling. I was just wondering at some point if you could provide that to us.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I did send some to Miss Russ, but I could send it to everyone, and we have tons of it. So when you're done reading that, we'll send you more. But I will definitely send it to you.
Yeah, I'm just interested.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
Thank you.
Dr. McLean, we have to remember to do that tomorrow. Sorry.
Just last question from me.
Absolutely.
The MOU that's in place for this year, does that go into next year or no?
No, that expires June 30th. So depending on what things are going to look like, and I'm sure a lot is going to change as far as the between now and even August. We'd like to have everything in place before mid July, but it's just not going to be feasible. I'm still waiting for like I said, I'm still waiting for graduation and prom guidance. So it's we're going to do the best that we can. We're going to run in, and you will hear about it loud and clear from teachers' unions, and we are in agreement as superintendents. We're not saying we don't want students to have, of course, if you have an ADA accommodation, if it's for your, we have ways on how to provide an education to you. We always have had that, but to choose to continue to go remote, we really have to look at what that's going to look like, because it doesn't really benefit anyone. We had to do it. We had no choice. This is, like I said, this was the best we can do, and the most most fiscally responsible thing we could do. And you see that we still went over, $1.3 million. So we have to look at other options. And we are talking with Shipman and Goodwin. Shipman and Goodwin is meeting with CAPS, the AFT, the CEA, which are teacher associations, and thinking about what will this look like. Can we do something regionally? Can we do something statewide? And what will this mean? Because there's a lot of implications, right? So if you decide that you're going to go remote and it's a statewide program, will you then have to withdraw from Cromwell Public Schools? And then does that mean that we will not receive your reimbursement rate for educating you? And do we give, there are a lot of legalities too, and we're just starting to touch upon that. So as I know more, I will inform you, but I'm sure it's going to be a while. But the governor has said it a few times that he wants to offer that opportunity.
Okay. So if there are no further questions or comments, this is on the agenda for action. And the only change I think we heard was to remove the purple shading from November 3rd, correct? So with that change, is there a motion to approve the updated school calendar for 2021-2022 as amended?
Jeff, could we break it into the two changes? The day or the hour off.
So have two motions, one be on the early dismissal Wednesdays, and one motion separately on the additional parent-teacher conference half days in March, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. I'm fine with that. So, Jen, did you have a question or?
I'm just wondering, maybe to keep it consistent with the half-day Wednesdays, like could that parent-teacher conference on the 4th be moved to the 3rd? So then, because parents are already going to be used to that early dismissal on Wednesday.
So the comment is, in November, have the parent conference day on the 4th moved to the 3rd, so that it would be a half-day early dismissal anyway, without having to do the 1 hour dismissal. But that would only be at CMS-CHS, though.
Ms. DiFiore and Ms. Cocciola, I don't see a problem, but I may be missing something as far as we are being asked in November.
And I think the difference would be at ECS and WIS, it would be a full day. That's the implication.
Yeah, it wouldn't impact. We would stay full day at ECS and WIS, have a regular, a full day. And I guess the part I'm asking Ms. Coach and Ms. DiFiore is, if we were to move your conferences we'll keep November 1st, because November 2nd is a teacher professional PD. November 3rd, can we move the second night of conferences to Wednesday, or do we have it deliberately on a Thursday for a reason? Is there? Yeah, I don't. That's why I'm afraid to say sure. Why not? Because I don't know if there's a reason for it.
Yeah, it's. I think part of it, Enza, has to do with Election Day being that Tuesday. I think I'm trying to think of how this went. Kids are not in school on that Tuesday.
Right.
They have the half day Monday. They're not in school that Tuesday, and then typically we would do a full day Wednesday. But now, yeah, I mean, I suppose we could, although it is.
So were we trying to spread
it out? I don't.
Were we trying to spread the pain out a little bit more, like for the same reason why we would remove November 3rd, have a half day on the 1st, then we have a PD day, so no school at all. Then Wednesday, the kids would come to school the entire day. And then the 4th, they would have a half day again. So it would just be half day, no school, half day, full day, full day.
Would it be, was it because it was a PLC day?
Yeah.
Is that why they had it on a Thursday? Because it was the traditional PLC day for the high school?
That could be. This has happened. This has been here for over 12 years. So I don't really know the origin of why it was Monday, Thursday.
Yeah, I don't.
I guess we could move it to.
Can I just? I didn't mean to open up a huge can of worms. I'm just it's a painful week just because they're hardly in school at all. What if the conferences were on the following week, so it wasn't the same week as the day off? That's all. So then you weren't changing anything on the Wednesdays. Is there a reason why? Like, if
I believe it.
Marking
I'm
period.
sorry. I believe it's in line with the end of the quarter.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's marking for the middle school and the high school, and for elementary, it doesn't really matter. Do you like the way we say it? It ends in March, but for credit-bearing courses and for the middle school, it's you have to kind of stay on that track.
So where are we with the conference?
So I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think it matters. The only thing I can think of, and I have no idea. Do we have a lot of teachers working on their masters or their? Because we have to have our masters to be teachers. We have a young staff. Have we had in the past? Have we had teachers who take classes on Mondays?
Yeah,
when
that's been part of
the Wednesday piece.
Yeah, that's been part of it because of grad classes are typically they've been usually on Tuesday and Wednesday, so we would, it would be very difficult for them to actually miss a class that's only once a week.
I
know that was part of it.
Veterans Day, we come to school. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, it doesn't really. I think we do it this way because we've always done it this way, to be honest with you. And there probably was a lot to do with master's classes. Like, so for example, like Fran said, if you're taking something twice, you're missing 2 classes. If you have it on a Monday and a Thursday, then you're only missing 1 because you meet twice that week. You only miss 1 of the classes. I remember that happening with me personally a very long time ago. So that's all I could think of. I can't think of anything else. Fran or Ann, if you can't, then we could either leave it or change it. What
Jen,
would you like?
had made the comment. Are you okay leaving it or?
Yeah, I'm fine leaving
Okay.
it.
Okay. All right. So so going back to the motion, we'll have 2 motions. Is there a motion to let's see, approve the updated school calendar 2021-2022 to add the purple shaded 1-hour early dismissal Wednesdays other than November 3rd, which will be a full day. That's kind of a clunky motion, but is there a motion? Motion by Dipty. Is there a second? Second by Selena. Are there any comments or questions?
I have one comment.
Dipty, could you just turn the mic on, Dipty?
Sorry. A lot of the professional development also takes place on a Wednesday, and that's a whole different dismissal time. I think that's a noon dismissal time. Would a notice go out for those? I can just see a real mess.
The newsletter, and we'll always continue the newsletters with the updates from the schools. I think that's very helpful to make sure that parents constantly get that in letters and reminders, and they'll be returned to us and they'll hang out in the office for a little bit, but yes, we'll make sure we do that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Lori?
So I just want to make sure I understood this. So are you taking away the early release on the Wednesday, the 3rd? Is that what you?
Correct.
That's how you. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
A no vote from John. Abstentions? Okay, so the motion passes with one opposition. Okay, next, is there a motion to have to amend or to approve the updated school calendar 2021-2022 to show the parent-teacher conferences days on March 16th, March 17th?
So moved.
There's a motion by John. Is there a second? Second by Selena. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. Okay. All right. So we are just going to move up one agenda item because we do have some guests here and we don't want to take up too much more of their time.
I'll just say that they offered to stay. I didn't ask. I'm wondering if they're regretting it.
So the item that's being moved up, we'll do the board committee reports now. We're not going to be voting on anything, so it's just more informational. So the policy committee, there is no update from the policy committee. Facilities and technology committee, there was a meeting tonight at which our contacts at CSG, Jim Giuliano and Chris Likely were at. And at that meeting, the building projects were discussed. So Jim and Chris were good enough to stay and address the full board at this time for the board committee report. So I'll turn it over to Selena to give if that's okay, a more full update for the facilities and technology committee, and we can have our reps from CSG come to the podium as well.
So as they had mentioned when they were at our facilities meeting, it's been about 7 years since we first engaged them, and throughout the process, some things have changed, administration and some town officials, Board of Ed members. So it's just about time to revisit these things and give the whole board some background and hopefully get back together and get back on track with getting this project underway. So the first step is to present it to the full board, and then we would have some conversations and then bring it to the next facilities meeting, which we're planning to move up. It's slated for September 7th, but we're going to move that along.
So, Jim, could you just introduce yourself again, and for those on the board that weren't here the last time you addressed us, and just make sure the mic is on before you.
Yeah, appears to be on. My name is Jim Giuliano. I'm president of Construction Solutions Group, CSG. We were engaged by Cromwell Board of Ed in 2015 to do a study on both the Edna Stevens Elementary School as well as Cromwell Middle School. We went through a facility study to look at various options for improvements at both of those schools. I'm kind of giving you the Reader's Digest version here. It was decided that Edna Stevens was to be a new school. We moved forward with that plan. We developed that plan. We developed educational specifications for that project, came up with a budget, and due to various issues that arose, it got put on hold, and now we're looking at resurrecting a project. May or may not be Edna Stevens. It could be the middle school, but that really is going to be up to the committee here, the Board of Ed, as to how we're going to move forward and what we need to move forward with. Is that a good enough summary? I know I kind of gave you the Reader's Digest version of that.
I think that's pretty much where we left off. And I think the one item I'll amplify is that, as you said, it may not be ECS first, it may be CMS, and at that time we talked about doing a renovate as new. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but
actually no, we looked at a brand new school for Edna Stevens.
That's right. I'm sorry, CMS. I'm sorry,
Oh,
CMS.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
CMS.
CMS was a hybrid. So
Right.
what we looked at for CMS because of budgetary constraints was doing some renovations and an addition to their classroom wing, and leaving the what I call the public spaces, the auditorium, gymnasium, cafeteria, alone, and addressing the issues that you had with your classroom spaces.
Right, and my point was that 6 years ago we talked about doing ECS first,
Right.
and then CMS, but that does not apply still, and we may reverse that. We just haven't had that discussion, but those are the things we'll be discussing, again in terms of the order and the extent. So
correct.
So any questions for our reps from CSG? So this will be coming back to the committee and then to the full board for a vote before it goes to the building committee, or?
So that's kind of what we were thinking. Obviously, still learning about all of this. What do we do next? We talked about having another facilities committee meeting, and Jim and Chris, or Jim or Chris, will come back with more information, more historical information, maybe some big numbers. We know that those numbers have changed. They went out to bid, RFP and to bid a while back. This is going to be a cost to the board, so we've incurred costs. We've paid, obviously, to get a lot of this work done, and now we have to redo it. So I just want to make sure that the board understands that Jim and Chris don't work for free. And they've been working for us for 6 years, 7 years. But then also we would have to look at an architect and revisiting those jobs, those bids. We know we want to go, obviously, to the facilities committee and bring back more information. But in the meantime, we have to have conversations. And it doesn't mean let's bring everybody together right away. As far as, remember, we had that tri-board meeting. But to find out if there is interest in the community in moving these projects forward, because if there isn't, it's just time wasted all over again, and money that none of us have. So we want to make sure that we have our facts straight, and then we want to make sure that when we finally have a building committee, and we have to look at the charter again to see what that process is, we are able to present. We talk about the operations of the building, and the buildings are falling apart and all of that. And I believe I see the bleeding every single day, and I want to cry every single time Ann comes in and says, or Tommy, they say we need to make another adjustment to the budget. But in reality, too, we need to look at the instructional programming that we're providing to our students in Cromwell, whether it is at ECS or it is at CMS. It is it's not innovative at all. And if we want to move forward with any type of innovation, which I would love to see and lead, then we need to make sure that we have buy-in, and we need to be able to articulate what our goals are to these committees. And so bringing it back to the facilities committee is probably a good next step, and then we have to make a decision as to where do we go from there. And that has to be in conversation with town officials and such. Is there an appetite for this project? And I say this project because I don't know which project there is an appetite for at this point. So we need to revisit, and I think those would be our next steps. Do you have anything, Chairman Matrullo, that you think,
No, the only thing I would add is that, after that next facilities committee meeting, it probably makes sense for you to come back and do a presentation to the full board, because again, there are so many new members since the last time we discussed this, just in terms of the process, the application to the state, the reimbursement rates, and maybe that's all changed anyway. Timing, just the high level overview of the process. So.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Catherine.
So I joined the board and went to that tri-board meeting, and it seemed like every person in the room was on a different page. A lot of
I'm
people
glad
were
you
brand
felt
new.
that way because I felt that
I was
way
like,
too.
what is happening? I thought everyone's been looking at this.
And that
and
was
now-
when I was meek and mild. Now
Yes.
I'm not anymore.
So, and then we said, well, why don't, after the fact, they said, well, why don't we look at the town next door that just built a brand new school?
And we did that. And
we
Mr.
did
Cycli
that,
came
and
with
then we
us.
went,
And
we're not doing this anymore. So, my concerns or my questions are that I hope that we keep a close eye on are once we determine whether or not there's a desire and a need, more importantly, I believe that the Rocky Hill was on the verge of losing certain accreditations because of the way their schools were busting out at the seams and everything else because they delayed in that town. So assuming that the community wants this and we move forward with one of the two projects, that we keep to a strict time frame so that the parties involved stay involved, because there is a lot of turnover on boards. We understand that, we know that, but it seemed like this has been dragging on for years, and it's ridiculous the amount of money we spent on it. So I just want us to all be very aware of, once we decide to start looking at it, we need to move with some efficiency.
Catherine, did you bug the room
No.
before? Because you're
I was
saying
not
everything
here.
that I said at
Well, I
the
was just-
facilities
I
meeting.
was
And you're
shocked at that
100%
meeting.
correct. Like, if we have the desire and we are going to do this, it's going to look, we have you can't back out anymore. It's either do it. If you back out, then we're done. I mean, you can't keep going back to the same thing, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. And that's kind of what we've been doing. So we have to really make sure that we are dedicated. And that doesn't mean all of you sitting here, because I truly believe that all of you are dedicated. That's why you're sitting here. And clearly that's why I'm here. CSG is here to help us, but we need that community buy-in. And then you're right. I believe that's why that happened at that meeting, is too much time went by and you had too many people too much changeover and different perceptions of what the cost was going to be, and different perceptions of what was important and what wasn't important, and what project we wanted to do after we actually had ed specs on ECS. To get to the point of where you have ed specs on a school and the community isn't sure if that's what they want to do, something went wrong.
Well,
So we
the
want to make
other
sure that doesn't happen.
Piece is that if the Board of Ed has to set the parameters for whatever project we go to do, then we need to make sure we're fully informative to the other boards and our community about where we are, what time frame, the amounts that are here, what's changing from one meeting to the next. We just have to be very transparent. That seemed that nobody was in control when we were at that meeting, and it was surprising.
Right.
So
I agree, 100%.
So thank you, and thank you for staying late.
No
Appreciate
problem.
it. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions
Thank you
for
for having
CSG?
us.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks.
We look
Thank
forward to
you.
working with you.
Thank you, Jim and Chris. I appreciate it.
All right, going back to the agenda, item 11D, action approval of out-of-state Six Flags senior trip, reference D. Self-explanatory. Are there do you have anything to add to this? No.
Self-explanatory.
So moved.
Question.
No.
Okay, so is that a motion? Motion from Selena to approve the out-of-state Six Flags senior trip, reference D. Is there a second? Second from Jen. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Item E, action stipend approval, reference E. Is there a motion to approve? Motion from Selena. Is there a second? Second from Catherine. Any comments or questions?
One question.
Question from
If
Dipti,
there-
please.
Let's say when you're looking at making cuts and stuff, how does these stipends go if there's something that are made or is this for you? Oh, this is for this.
This is
Never
here.
mind,
Yeah.
never mind. Okay.
No problem. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries unanimously. Item F, informational principal reports, references F, G, H, and I. Are there any questions? Hearing none. Item G, informational, human resources, personnel activity, reference J. Dr. Macri, do you want to comment on any of the new hires or resignations?
Yes, I do. We have
I saw one big one.
we have 2 retirements that are, I have to say, Mary Beth Sarnacki B is retiring, and I know she was one of the first people that I met here. I don't think I've met anyone, it's close, who loves Cromwell and the students of Cromwell as much as Mary Beth. She has devoted a very long time to the school system. She bleeds. She bleeds red. She loves the students. It is sad. I want her to be happy and move on and enjoy her career, her retirement. But she has had a very long journey in Cromwell Public Schools, and she has touched so many people's lives, adults, students. She's been mentor to many. So this is a very big loss for Cromwell Public Schools, but we do wish her the very best, and I do not think that she's going to just go away. I believe that she will still be with us, but I am so happy for her, but sad for us. And then we also have Paul Russo, who is a custodian, and he has been with us for 18 years, and this will also be a large loss to our district. He was one of the. It's interesting. I'm like, gee, I have to stop meeting people quickly because they were retiring. But he was one of the first people I met, and very devoted to his job, and cares very deeply about the district as well. So, these are both big losses to Cromwell. I wish both of them incredible health and wellness and best wishes in their retirement. And they can always sub. we need subs. But to think that Mary B has been here since September 1982. That's a long time. So we wish her well, and we wish Mr. Russo well.
Well, the board thanks them for their years of service. I think B is probably the teacher that's been into the board meetings the most in my 8 years on the board. So,
because B does everything. Mm-hmm. She wrote in her letter. She really does everything. Her heart and soul is truly in the right place. And it's with our kids.
So, thank you. I was also born in 1981.
Okay, Mr. Matrullo, you'll make Miss Sarnacki feel very badly. He said he wasn't born yet in 1980.
No, I was.
Oh, you were born then. I'm sure Miss Sarnacki is not too happy hearing that, but she looks wonderful.
The grades are coming in. Okay. Next, we have a series of policies on the agenda for first read. These are only first reads, so no vote tonight. And we've usually we can have any discussion that people want to have or any comments. We can receive those, but they will not be on the agenda for a vote. That will happen at our next meeting. So, any comments or questions on these policies? So, okay, hearing none. We did talk about the board committee reports. So, topics for future agendas. We did not have anything to add. So nothing to do there. Next, comments, updates, and announcements from board members and administrators. We'll start with the administrators on the phone. Anything to add? Okay, hearing none. John, our board member on the phone, anything to add?
Nothing.
Okay, thank you. We'll start on that side. Alessandra? Lou? Lori?
Just congratulations to Mrs. Sarnacki, and we'll miss her very much.
Thank you. Dr. Macri? Selena?
Well, not an announcement, but going back to topic for future agendas, should we add
sure.
the building project discussion to one of the meetings? Or at a later date?
Do you know when you're having your next
Well,
facilities
we're
meeting?
planning to move it, so I don't know when we can move it, but I'm sure it will be before July, and we have July empty here, so.
I'm wondering if we.
I mean, I think our facilities
Like-
meeting could be anytime in the next
like
few weeks
maybe
even.
June, like end of May, early June, so we stay focused. Is that
Can
okay
it
with
just
you?
go under
It's fine with
committee
me.
reports, though?
Instead
of as a separate agenda item?
Well, I think the point is they're going to talk about it at the facilities meeting and then bring it to the full board.
Right, so when we have our board committee report, should it fall underneath that, which we have every Board of Ed meeting?
I think it probably deserves a standalone agenda item. So I mean, if you can have your committee meeting in June, then I think we can add it to our July meeting. That's
Okay.
fine. So could we just add that to the July agenda?
Mhm.
So I think, so here's the thing, if the facilities committee meets earlier, then we can move it up even further.
Do we have to meet before a full board meeting, or can we just call a meeting anytime?
Well, you have to have a special meeting since your regular meeting schedule has been adopted. So you just have to have a special meeting, and the only thing you can discuss at that meeting is what's on the agenda.
Okay.
So.
And is it okay to do that so we keep this process going?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just have to publicize it.
Yep,
And then
do all the right
so,
things.
yeah.
Got it.
Lou?
In spirit of having that, moving that meeting up, would it make sense to invite a guest to the facilities meeting to get some directive as to what will be the next step, just to push things along? I'm thinking if we're going to really do this, whether it's the mayor or town
Yeah,
manager.
I defer to the committee on that and Dr. Macri, so yeah.
Unfortunately, the mayor does send his regrets. He wasn't able, I did invite Mayor Fianza to attend tonight, but he was going to try to make it, but he was unable to make it. And I could invite him to, and I will invite him to the next meeting as well. Is there anyone else that we would like to invite to that facilities meeting that we feel that would be helpful, or at this point would we just like to invite the mayor?
I think we possibly start with the mayor out of respect for the mayor.
Can I suggest that I think we need to invite Julius, the chair of the Board of Finance?
Yes, I agree.
I agree.
Okay, great. Is that okay? Is that what you would like?
That's
okay.
fine.
To the next facilities meeting, and then ask them. They'll hear everything because that night we'll then do the same presentation for the board. Okay.
Are we going to set that meeting up? Are we going to set it up now?
So the facilities,
Selena, do you want to set it up?
I'll let Selena
Tomorrow.
schedule it with
Yeah.
the committee
And
members,
just
then it
email
needs
us
to be
as soon as.
public. Yeah, it just needs to be
Yes.
posted, so.
Lisa will email Selena and all of you, and we'll send out dates to see what works for everyone.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, sure.
Okay, Selena, any comments, updates, announcements?
No, none.
Okay. Jen? Dipti? Catherine? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn? Motion from Catherine. Is there a second? Second from Lou. Comments, questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned.